Once you've set up the equipment in the system, you'll then need to set the undercarriage up on the equipment. If you've just completed the equipment setup, you'll be at the page shown here, where you can go directly to set up the undercarriage. If the equipment's been set up previously and you now want to add the undercarriage at a later date, from the equipment details page there's a setup undercarriage button. Either way, you'll be taken to the same place, so we'll just do it from here and we'll set up the undercarriage on this equipment. The first step is to set up the systems, which is the chains and the frames. You can give your chains and your frames a serial number if you're tracking them, or you can leave these blank and they'll be filled in automatically by the system. You can then add a system life and the equipment SMU when the system was attached to the equipment. So if this was a second-hand chain, you could say that the chain had 100 hours on it and enter those hours here. Or you could just leave it at 0. And if the equipment was, if it was installed on the equipment at 1,000 hours, you could enter that here. We've set the equipment up as brand new, and we're going to set the chains and the frames up as brand new as well. So we'll just hit next. The next stage is to select all of the components. The components are pre-selected to a degree. So I've set up a D10. So it knows that a D10 has a link, a bush and a shoe for the chain. And then for the frame, it'll automatically fill in an idler, a sprocket, and 4 track rollers. We can then add and adjust these as required. So we know that this is going to have 8 track rollers. So we use the add track roller button to add 4 more track rollers so that we've got 8. We might say that it's an elevated sprocket. So it's going to have an additional idler. You'll see that this is the default front idler. And we can add an additional idler, and that'll now be shown at the rear. If it has a carrier roller, we can add the carrier roller. If it has a guard over the track rollers, we can add that, and a track elongation if we're planning on measuring that. We then have to select what exact components are in each of these for each of these types. If we look up the top, you can see we're setting up both sides at the same time because they're going to be identical. If you have a different configuration on the left and the right, you could choose left and right and set them up independently. We'll just set them up both the same. The options in the system are set based on the model you've chosen. So it's a case of just seeing what's on your machine and choosing the matching one here. With shoe, you also choose the size of the shoe. Might say it's 28 inch. And the grouser type, so we'll say it's a triple grouser. The same for the frame components. We just select the idlers, select the sprocket, carrier roller, and now the track rollers. You can also select the brand of the component. So we may have all OEM, so Caterpillar parts on this machine, but we may have added an aftermarket front idler. So we could select an aftermarket brand for the idler here. The budget lives are set as a default originally. Once you adjust the budget life, in future when you replace the component, the budget life you've set will be staying for the new component. We'll leave all that the same. The CMU is any component hours that the components have on them now. Once again, if they're second-hand components, they may already have some hours on them, in which case you can add those hours in here. And then any costs. So if you have the costs of the components, you can enter them in for your cost fields. Once you've selected all your components, select next. You can then review what you've selected and then submit. The undercarriage is now set up. If we were to go back to our dashboard and search for this particular equipment, I happen to know that I set the serial as vidtest serial and vidtest unit. And we can now view the equipment and see all the components that are set up on it. The setting up the undercarriage is that simple.